Powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios. It's Football at 4.
And Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast, and it is brought to you today by Caesars Entertainment Group of Atlantic City. Come experience the ultimate sports destinations all season long. Wild Wild West, Tropicana Harry Resort, Atlantic City. Book your game day experience today at Caesars.com. Andrew DiCecco is here to talk a little Eagles Washington football team. I believe he was at FedEx Field, where the Eagles beat the Washington football team on Sunday, clinching a playoff berth once some other things happened around them. We'll get Andrew's observations on the win and what might be next for the Eagles in the playoffs. Happy New Year, Andrew DiCecco. What's up, man?
How are you?
I'm all good, man. Now, everybody talks about FedEx Field. I heard that Merrill Reese didn't even go to the game because he said it was a dump. He actually called it remotely. Would you concur that FedEx Field is not top-notch?
Yes, I think I would concur that and share that same sentiment.
All right, let's take a look at some of the observations from you in this game. And I want to start with Jalen Hurts and the game that he played. Now, the numbers won't pop off the screen and say that he played a great game, but where was that game for you in terms of his progression as a quarterback? Because I thought he played a really solid football game.
I concur, Mike. I think that the stat sheet can sometimes be misleading when you really watch the game and see how he commanded the offense and just the growth that he's made. And we've talked about this the past couple of weeks. I think that Jalen Hurts really showed that the ability to dig deep, and he really reinforced his ability to dig deep and really propel the offense to victory when things around him maybe aren't the most ideal. Maybe there's parts of the game where the offense doesn't generate points and they're kicking field goals instead of converting that into touchdowns. He shakes all that off and he makes big plays in crucial moments. And I thought, for example, that flip over the head when he's falling down to Boston Scott and Boston Scott leaps into the end zone. I thought that he just so calm, cool, and collected under pressure. And that's such a rare quality for our young quarterback. And I think he has the ideal traits and mindset that you really need to play the position in Philadelphia, and especially moving forward into the postseason now. I think that he just has such a mature mindset and poise for such a young player.
Yeah, I agree. And I thought he made some really good reads. He read from, deep down to shallow in some, and you mentioned Boston Scott. He hit Scott out of the backfield after kind of checking off down the field a couple of times. I thought he made some good decisions. We don't see the running backs in this offense catch the ball out of the backfield all that much, but he got Scott involved on a couple of different plays, and I thought that was that was a step forward for him is, hey, there's nothing downfield, nothing here over the middle. Let me check off to my running back. And I thought we saw a couple of instances of that on Sunday.
Yeah, you really haven't seen much of that in the offense, and I thought that was a little puzzling. Given the running backs that they do have those qualities and the ability to affect those short areas of the field and create yards after the catch. And I think that's when you're looking at the receiving aspect, you only have, we've talked about this, there's only two guys you can really count on in Dallas Goedert and Devontae Smith. So you have to find a way when the running game's not working or it's tough sledding in there as it was on Sunday. You have to find other options and other outlets in which to deliver the football. And I think when you have a running back like a Kenny Gainwell, Boston Scott, who is a very underrated receiver, Miles Sanders when he's healthy, these are guys that need to be utilized in the offense and implemented in, because they can certainly alleviate some of the pressure from the quarterback and really, create yards after the catch and keep the offense moving and the chains moving.
Hey, let's look at out of the gates. The defense really looked out of sort early on. You had Tyler Heineke just kind of have his way down the field there. We've seen this team get off to some slow starts, but the way the defense started that game out and that first half, I thought the first drive they give up the touchdown, but I thought they did a good job after that in holding Washington to field goals And once they held them to the 3 field goals, I said at halftime, Washington's done. They had their shot and didn't capitalize it because you knew Gannon, I thought anyway, would make the adjustments in the second half. But you were there to kind of watch it all unfold. The defense came out, gave up that 11-play drive or something like that to start the game off.
Yeah.
But then I thought they really settled in after that.
Yeah, it was a 67-play drive, I believe, the opening drive after DeAndre Carter took the opening kickoff 34 yards. It was, it was one of those things where the defense got off to a slow start, and it took them a little bit to find their footing. But once they did, Mike, you really saw a dominance and a unit that was decidedly better than the offense they were going against. You saw the defensive line really unleash and the pass rush prowess that they have, and just going after, bearing down on Taylor Heineke. And but in that first drive, Taylor Heineke was sort of doing what many quarterbacks did to the Eagles in the beginning of the season, and that is picking apart the short to intermediate areas of the field when the pressure wasn't getting home. And I thought Cam Sims had a nice reception to keep a drive going. I thought tight end John Bates had a nice one on the right sideline to really set them up. And then, of course, Jarrett Patterson with the 11-yard touchdown to cap the drive. It was a pretty balanced attack. Now, the Washington offense is far from world beaters. Scott Turner is a pretty competent offensive coordinator, but when you face an upper echelon team in the playoffs, you can't afford to find yourself in a hole like that and get off to and take half a quarter or a quarter to wake up. That's not going to work. Right. The Eagles found their footing, and you started to see the pass rush really take advantage of a porous offensive line, which they should. But again, those slow starts are a bit concerning.
Yeah, because you spin this forward and you look at the way they were able to move the ball in that first drive. You're talking about the Washington offense, which isn't littered with talent. You have games like that in the postseason. I don't know that you're holding to 3 field goals. That might turn into 21 points if you're not careful.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, sometimes that turns into a 17-point deficit and a hole that you can't quite climb out of, and it starts to act as a snowball effect. So you really need to get out to a fast start, and that's something that the Eagles haven't been able to do on all 3 phases. I thought the offense really started out hot. I thought Jalen Hurts at one point, I think he was 7 for 7, and that's exactly what you need. There's a lot of rhythm in the offense, good balance. They leaned on the running game, even though it wasn't necessarily providing great results as it has been in past weeks. I thought that Nick Sirianni showed tremendous growth in that area and commitment to staying with a successful blueprint. So, but the Eagles really need to find a recipe where all 3 units are playing cohesively, because that is not going to work as we venture into the playoffs.
Yeah, we're talking with Andrew DiCecco, Football at 4. A lot to dissect from that game. Andrew was there. What was your take on Sirianni going on 4th down so often there? Did you have a problem with some of the decisions?
No, I liked the 2 early 4th down attempts, as a matter of fact. And yeah, that would have been disheartening to come away without any points there, obviously in a must-win situation. But I thought that he leaned on the team's most effective unit, which is the offensive line, and pretty much said, our guys are better than your guys, and really wanted to impose his will and stick with the running game, which had been so successful. And I thought that showed tremendous confidence. And he's not swayed one way or the other. I think Nick Sirianni has really, in amid the second half surge, I think he really grew up as a coach, and I think he deserves a lot of credit. Really could be a dark horse, frankly, for a coach of the year. And I just thought that in those moments like that, it would be so easy just to take the field goal or play conservative. But he knew that his offense, he believed in what he was doing, and he knew that his unit was better. And, the first time it didn't work, I think I probably would have went to Boston Scott in that area, the short to intermediate, that short burst and quickness, and his ability to just go forward, I think translates a little bit better than a Jordan Howard, who's a little bit more of a plotter. But nevertheless, I think that both moves were the right things to do in those situations.
Yeah, I'm wondering, get your opinion on this, if he does that in a playoff situation. Does he say, hey, we're playing with house money in these playoffs, let's just go for broke here, or is he doing that because he feels he has the better team?
Well, in the playoffs, that's a different situation because I think that you are playing with house money and you need to pull out some of these stops like that in order to beat some of these teams because, quite frankly, the Eagles are going to be outgunned by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, by the Dallas Cowboys, right? I mean, those are better teams. But I like what the Eagles have from a DNA perspective of just the resolve and the buy-in to the coach and his methods and just the overall development that you're seeing from a guy like a Jonathan Gannon, from a young player like a Josh Sweat. I think that there's a belief and a commitment and a toughness and resolve into what they're doing and what they're building there. And that really all stems from the quarterback and his poise and his calmness. And I think, Mike, in order to be able to compete and contend with some of these upper echelon teams, you have to be aggressive and you have to go for it on fourth down if it's manageable, right? If it makes sense.
Right.
But I think these are some of the things you're going to have to do if you want to pull out a win here in the first round of the playoffs.
Yeah. Now the offensive line, you got a good chance to watch them live there. I look at the yards per carry and I see that was down. I don't think the run game was nearly as effective. Is that an offensive line thing? To me, watching the game on TV, they just look like we played 3 games in 15. They look like a little worn out a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think they only averaged about 3.4 yards a carry, which was far below what they've been able to produce in the recent weeks. But Washington's a pretty stout run defense. I mean, they have a good defensive line. You got to give them credit. But on the same token, Mike, I would give Nick Sirianni credit, as I've alluded to, for sticking with the successful blueprint and not sort of returning back to that pass-happy offense that really has not yielded positive results earlier, for much of the season.
Right.
And I think that sometimes when you face these teams like Tampa Bay or whoever, you're not always going to be churning out 5-6 yards a clip, but you need to be able to stay committed to it because eventually that will pop. Eventually that's going to wear on teams. And I think that the Eagles have proven, Nick Sirianni has proven that he's not going to deviate from that. And I think that's very encouraging moving forward because he didn't cave and he didn't cave into it just because it wasn't going his way in the early goings.
I don't know if you saw, I guess there was some video of them in the locker room after the game, Nick Sirianni. And what he said in there, I think really makes you feel like, and not that they've done it since the Vegas game. They've decided that they're going to run the ball and be that. But Sirianni says, we're tough, we're nasty, we're physical. That's who we are. When you're saying that to the 53 men in that locker room after a win, I think that says Sirianni believes that their identity is a tough, nasty, physical run team. And that made me feel like this guy gets it. He doesn't want to, if they have to, we've heard, they want to pass the ball. The owner wants to pass. Sirianni tells his team, we're tough, we're nasty, we're physical. That's who we are. I think he believes it.
Well, that's just it. He does believe it, and he shows it. You can say it, and that sounds great, but he's actually delivering with his actions. And sometimes you need to be patient with a young coach. You're finding your way through the NFL, and I think eventually when he figured out what he really had with his personnel, was able to assess and take a step back, he saw that his offensive line was dominant. They're driving guys off the ball. They're establishing a physicality and a dominance that teams really, that you see defenses want no part of, particularly as we get here into the really colder months. And he said, okay, I found a blueprint here that's going to be successful. You have a tandem of running backs, really a trio of running backs, and 4 really, that you can really interchange in and out of the lineup. They all present different matchups and different skill sets. And then, and in turn, you're taking a little bit off the shoulders of your quarterback, which you really overloaded him early on. So he was really finding his way, and he really saw what he had on offense, and that is the offensive line is their dominant unit, and it's going to reset the line of scrimmage more often than not, and that's really what you need as we go into the playoffs. And I think that's what he really realized, and it took him a little bit longer than most would have liked to figure that out, but he figured it out, and he stayed committed to it.
Hey, we're talking with Andrew DiCecco, Football at 4. If you read Andrew over at Inside the Birds, he does a pregame scouting report before every game. You highlighted Josh Sweat in that. And I thought he had maybe one of his best games of the season. And that's the kind of guy that the Eagles gave money to. And if he could be that type of player, I'm not asking him to do what he did on Sunday every single week, but, man, I thought he was a huge disruptor.
Yeah, and that's exactly what the Eagles believed that they were getting in Josh Sweat when they inked him to that 3-year, $40 million extension in September. Now, Josh has disappeared for certain spurts of games, but there's no doubt about it. He is the team's best pure pass rusher. He has a tremendously long wingspan. He's very athletic and bendy, and he can do many different things that you're not going to find on the Eagles roster right now. So if he's able to build on that momentum, it could very well serve as a launching pad into the next couple of weeks here. And if you get him going and get his hands, he had a pass deflection on that final drive there. I mean, you get him going, and that really presents a whole different matchup concern for an offense and how to defend that guy, because he really is freakish in his intangibles and his traits and what he's able to do. So that was really encouraging to see him get going. Now you want to see him be able to produce that against some of the more formidable offensive lines and be more consistent in that regard.
And it helped because we know Gannon didn't send a lot of pressure, but I thought Sweat played his best game. I thought Fletcher Cox kind of stood out for the game on Sunday. I mean, and that's their formula on defense. They need those guys because you're there. Gannon does not want to send a lot of pressure.
Yeah, and then this week he didn't need to, but knowing what he has there in his defensive line and that deep rotation of players, call on that a little bit, right? I mean, that's your not so secret weapon that you could really lean on in these critical moments, particularly in the playoffs, when you're trying to put pressure on a quarterback that really is going to be able to dissect that short to intermediate area of the field.
Yeah.
You might not always need to send pressure, but you have to be able to stay aggressive and keep the quarterback on. You have to stay on the attack and not be passive. And I think that sometimes he's reverted back to that, and other times he's shown growth in that aspect of the profession. But I think he really needs to keep his foot down on the gas and turn these guys loose, because I think that could be the difference between winning and losing in a couple of these close matchups upcoming.
Now, obviously, this game on Sunday night, which we'll look a little deeper in on Thursday when Andrew's back, but it doesn't have a lot of, there's not a lot of meaning in this game. Both teams can move up the standings, I guess. It looks like Philly is not going to play its players, or they're not sure. It looks like Dallas is going to play its players. But once you get into the playoffs, you look at this Eagles offense. Can they win by running the ball and such a, Dallas Goedert, Devontae Smith? I don't know if there's another way that they can get another secondary player involved in this offense, because it seems that they just cannot get one of their other receivers to be a part of this offense at all.
Yeah, that's an astute observation. I mean, and that's something that I wrote about in my observation piece after the game, and we've talked about it here. I've written about it countless times. That's a problem, and that's not something that can be easily addressed in the rest of this season. That's going to have to be upgraded in the offseason. I mean, when Dallas Goedert and Devontae Smith aren't primary options or aren't open, or whatever the case is, the passing game sort of just is going to, Jalen Hurts has to improvise and make things happen on his own, because you're not seeing the Quez Watkins or the Jalen Reagors of the world, or even the Tyree Jacksons just create separation and, help the quarterback, help the offense out a little bit. You're not seeing that, and that's not really going to be able to be corrected until the offseason. But it is a big problem here, and something that I think is going to hinder the offense and could be problematic as we move forward here. So they're going to have to be run heavy, really by default, given just the lack of resources in the receiving game.
Yep, I know that I think we had the conversation a couple of weeks ago whether you would replace, Rieger with Greg Ward. Ward actually had a catch in the game. Rieger did not.
A nice catch.
Right? But he makes a meaningful catch. I mean, he makes a catch, it moves the sticks. I mean, Ward catches a ball, he scores a touchdown half the time. The other half, it's for a first down. And Rieger doesn't show up in the stat sheet from what I remember. I mean, to me, you're at a point where he's just completely useless on the field.
That 27-yard catch that Greg Ward had on that improvised play from Jalen Hurts was a catch that if Jalen Reagor's in that spot, he doesn't make that catch.
That and the fact that I feel like, and I don't know if you can even tell while you're watching, but I feel like Hurts has lost confidence in Rieger. He won't even look his direction anymore.
Yeah, that can certainly be ascertained just based on his unwillingness to look in his direction, or just some of the routes and the balls that are designed to go his way. They're not really asking Jalen Rieger to do a whole lot. He's not entrusting him to just shake free and come up with these contested catches like he exhibits a lot more confidence in a guy like Devontae Smith, and rightfully so, because Devontae continuously delivers for the offense and has bailed Jalen out of some really tough situations. Remember that catch there in Denver in the end zone? What other Eagles receiver is making that play? And I think that you only can look at one guy, and that's Devontae Smith. That's a problem, but I mean, that's a big reason why you're seeing an unwillingness to really look at those other guys in critical moments.
Do you have a matchup which the Rams, Tampa Bay, do the Eagles match up better with either one of those two?
I mean, I would say probably. I'm going to go ahead and say the Rams, because Matthew Stafford has not really been in these high-pressure situations before. You don't want to see Tom Brady in the playoffs, regardless of what he has around them. Tom Brady has the Eagles' number. He has every team's number when it comes to the playoffs, by and large. So I think that he's someone that, if you're the Eagles, you want to avoid if possible, and take your chances going against the Rams and unfamiliar territory with Matt Stafford.
It's funny because it's like the Rams have I feel like they have a better roster right now, but I'd rather play Stafford than a beat-up Bucs team because I don't want to face Brady. But the Bucs, I feel like, are kind of there right now for the taking, right?
Yeah, that's the thing. You have the Bucs that are sort of reeling right now. I mean, my gosh, the Jets nearly took them the distance. They lost to the Washington football team, so they can certainly be beaten. But in the same token, you're going against a quarterback in Matthew Stafford that really hasn't faced the pressure like this in his career. So, I mean, either one of those teams you can certainly make a case for, and they both have their flaws. The Rams undoubtedly have the better roster, but I think when you're going against Tom Brady, I don't think you're ever going to like those odds or ever feel totally comfortable.
When are you getting into the draft, man?
After this postseason run. So it's been a long season and you know, extra stuff to go. So we'll go right into it right after that.
Not to mention the Eagles have 3 picks in the first round, so that's even extra work you're going to be doing.
Yeah, and you know, I've been getting some questions on Twitter, and I greatly appreciate the questions, but I'll be able to get into all that more in depth once the season wraps up. But you know, we still have some postseason football to cover here, and we're gonna do that at a high level, and we're gonna cover the draft at a high level as well.
By the way, if the draft was today, the Eagles would have 14, 21, and 22. That would be their 3 picks. The Indianapolis pick is 22. Their own pick is 21, and the Miami pick is number 14. You can be damn sure Andrew and I will get our hands dirty with those 3 picks and the draft. But, as he said, postseason football to discuss. He'll be back on Thursday to look at Eagles-Cowboys here on Football at 4. All right, Andrew, take care, buddy.
You too, Mike. Talk soon.
Smart football mind, Andrew DiCecco there, and he was kind enough to join us here on the Sports Bash Football at 4. Of course, it's brought to you by Caesars Entertainment Group of Atlantic City. Come experience the ultimate sports destination all season long, Wild Wild West, Tropicana, and Harrah's Resort Atlantic City. Book your game day experience today at Caesars.com.